Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you join us today for this very special panel featuring our alumni from the Morrison Healthcare Dietetic Internship. So, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedules to share your experiences. Our goal today is to provide insight and encouragement for future applicants and current interns by reflecting on your journeys. So we'll aim to keep this conversation around 30 minutes. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll ask a series of questions and we'll go around the group so that we can hear your thoughts. So let's begin with some quick introductions. So if each of you could please introduce yourself, just tell us your name, your current role, and where you're located at within the United States, and what class that you graduated from the Morrison Healthcare Dietetic Internship. So who'd like to go first?
I guess I'll go ahead and kick things off. My name is Alex Williams. I am currently working as an inpatient clinical dietitian for Sodexo at Doctors Hospital of Augusta in Augusta, Georgia, and I completed the Morrison Dietetic Internship April 2025.
Thank you.
My name's Grace. I just completed the 2025 Morrison Dietetic Internship in April in Charleston, South Carolina. I don't currently have a role yet. I'm applying to jobs around Charleston. I don't exactly know which area I want to enter into yet, so I'm kind of just exploring roles after getting my RD.
My name is Zachary Campos. I'm here in San Diego, California, and I completed the Morrison internship in April 2025. And I'm currently working as a tutor for my RD guide and for Palomar Medical Center in Escondido.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much. But it's a pleasure to have you here. I'm so excited to dive deeper into your previous journey with us at the Dietetic Internship Program. So my next question for all of you is, what inspired you to pursue dietetics, and how did you first hear about the Morrison Healthcare Dietetic Internship?
I guess we'll have our order now, so I guess I'll go ahead.
Okay.
We'd be here all day if I talked about why I went into dietetics. Various different reasons from watching a mother who had a autoimmune disease and she was affected by nutrition. She actually got scurvy at one point and then tried to correct it with grapefruit, which led to another issue with drug nutrient interactions to being a competitive athlete in college and military. So again, I'm going to spare everyone the 30-minute dialogue of that. As far as how did I hear about Morrison, I went through the University of Augusta and they partner with Morrison. So I heard about it from one of my classmates.
Great. Thank you.
I agree. I think a lot of us could probably talk on and on about that. But I got interested initially in nutrition during undergrad. I was considering route. I love science, I love medicine, and I love helping people. So as I explored that option, I started to realize my passion was really more on the preventative side of things rather than the treatment side of things. And I've always loved food. I've always loved cooking. And so I was like so excited when I realized that you can kind of combine it all in nutrition. I went to NC State undergrad, which doesn't offer a pre-DPD course, but I was able to do it through UGA during my master's. I got my DPD, and that's how I found out about Morrison. I had some classmates that did Morrison, and it was the perfect opportunity for me since it was a separate dietetic internship and master's for me. I had already completed my master's before going into it.
Thank you.
And I, kind of similarly, I found nutrition dietetics during my undergrad. I was actually not planning on going to college, but my parents asked me to just get my associates and then I could do whatever I wanted. In my last credit before I had my associates, I took a sports nutrition class, and the professor that was teaching it was a former sports dietitian. And so it was just, I found it really interesting. I was already really into kinesiology, and we would talk a lot, me and my professor, and we kind of came to the conclusion together that it was a career path I should explore. And if I don't like it, I can change my mind, but it's what captured the most interest at the time. So I moved forward with it and finished my undergrad at SDSU, got my master's at ASU, and then and then I applied to the Morrison DI because it was the closest to me in San Diego in North County where I live. And also I thought that the network was incredible, and reading about the internship, it was definitely the best fit for me and my family.
All right, fantastic. So let's move on to the application and selection process of the DI. So what motivated you to apply to the program in particular? Were there any features or values that made Morrison stand out to you? And lastly, what advice do you have for current students who are thinking about applying to the DI program?
Yeah, sure. So, like I said before, Morrison partners with University of Alabama. So there was an opportunity to do a selection process before DICAS. So I was able to match without going through the whole process. It works a little bit differently now. So taking the stress off of matching was an appeal to me. On top of locations, I had a toddler when I was working on my master's degree. Before that, I had flexibility to go anywhere and do anything. And then after that, I didn't want to uproot my family, especially since my husband was still in the military at the time. So the having the pre-match and the location were key. And another thing that really stood out to me was not having to find preceptors. When I first started my DPD program, it was around the height of COVID, and I had a lot of friends who were mentors to me who were just going through like a crisis trying to find mentors during COVID. So that's what appealed to me. As far as advice for students who are prepping their application now is find something that stands out about you. I'm fortunate because I have a work experience. I'm a career changer. I was 10 years in the Army and have a lot of leadership experience to help me stand out. But that doesn't mean that just because you're fresh out of college doesn't mean you don't have anything to offer or that you don't have your own experiences, even if it's volunteer work. Especially like if you did anything in the academy, there's a lot of like even virtual opportunities. So just make yourself stand out. That would be my advice.
That's great.
Yeah, I agree with all of those things. I had all of those things in my head as well. So I don't want to sound like a broken record, but for me, applying to Morrison honestly started way back before even grad school. I specifically chose UGA knowing that I wanted to end up in Charleston, and I had some friends that did Charleston and Morrison, and I know UGA also, or sorry, UGA then Morrison, and I know UGA also works with Morrison a little bit, and we were able to do the pre-select. So the choice of location definitely stood out to me. And then additionally, with the not having to find your own preceptors, and I've heard so many good things about the Morrison preceptors, and I can attest that it was all true. They're all amazing. And then additionally, look comparing Morrison to some other internships I looked at, the clinical focus stood out to me. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do clinical after the internship, so it was super important that I got some clinical experience during the internship. It was super important to me that I got that experience so that I could not only grow those skills, but also explore it a little bit more than I had in the past. And then again, with what I recommend for students applying is definitely honing in on those key differences you might have from other students. So try to think about what every other dietetic student probably already has, and then think about what you have different from them. And then additionally, during like the review process and even while you fill out your application, just like be confident in those things. Confidence is so important, I think, throughout a application process and interviewing and all those things.
Those are great words. Zach?
Yeah, I mean, to try to re-say what's already been said twice before, what motivated me to apply to Morrison's program, um, a lot of it was location, a lot of it was Morrison had just rolled out the tuition reimbursement, which was a big factor in my choices, and then also the program and what it covered. And so, as far as any factors that made it stand out during the application process, the biggest factor for me at the time was location. Morrison was going to be the closest one to me, the most reasonable one. It wasn't going to leave me in hours of traffic every day. Uh, and kind of what I said before, the tuition reimbursement, and then the something not to overlook is the sheer amount of networking that you have the opportunity for if you choose Morrison. You have people all over the United States you can lean on, reach out to, talk with, and that's not something that you can really easily put a price tag on. It's kind of invaluable. And then any advice for students currently preparing their applications, as hard as it is, brag about yourself. Sometimes we get told not to be proud or talk about ourselves too much. This is one of the few occasions where you want to talk about yourself and how great you are and how you are the best thing since sliced bread. And then really make sure that when you're, doing your interviews with um, different applications and hopefully with Morrison, that that you're really emphasizing that you're here to learn, you're here to be part of a team. Um, you can only get so far by yourself and you're brand new. Just come in as humble as you can. Um, and that's probably my tips.
Thank you. Yeah, you all made really great points, and I'm really happy that you see the value in the program and also were able to provide that great advice to future students. So thank you. So next, let's dive into your experience during the internship. So can you share a little about your overall experience, any like standout moments or challenges maybe that you faced that were particularly meaningful to you? And then what helped you succeed during your rotation? Were there any specific tools, habits, or relationships that made a difference to you?
Sure. So overall experience was fantastic. I got to see and do so much, especially the clinical portion, especially clinical inpatient. I loved. I was in Charlotte at the time of my rotation. I've since moved. Um, and I had an opportunity in downtown Charlotte at a level 2 trauma center, 654 bed hospital, so huge hospital. And we had about a dozen RDs, which gave me an opportunity to see different ways people practice and get different stories and different types of mentors. And like what Zach was saying, an opportunity to connect and network. And as far as anything memorable is ask for experiences, ask for a modified barium swallow, ask to see bariatric surgery, ask to go down to pharmacy and see TPN compounded, work with an ostomy wound nurse for a day, get a chance to, because once you're actually working as an RD, you won't really get to have the time to do these things. So it's really cool, and you get to see a side of it that a lot of people don't see or get to do. And what helped me succeed, my preceptors, hands down. I mean, I relied on them nonstop. And I'm not the person who's, afraid to ask questions, and you shouldn't be either, because it's an opportunity to learn. So, you don't want to ask questions. You may be more embarrassed when you're actually in the role as opposed to a student status. So ask away. There's no stupid questions. Um, and what I wish I knew before starting the internship is I feel like you practice a lot of ADIME notes, but you don't really understand charting until you're actually doing it. So at first, it's incredibly stressful to learn an EMR, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so slow. How am I going to start seeing more patients? But you catch on pretty quickly. So if you feel overwhelmed at first, it's completely normal, and you'll give it a couple weeks, and you'll get a groove.
Great, thank you.
I could not have said all of that better myself. Alexandra, you hit all the points I was going to say as well. Yeah, I think all of those things are super important. It's one thing I want to note about like what was memorable. I had a great experience as well, super well rounded. I feel like I got experience with different types of people, different types of nutrition, and going from one rotation to another was exciting, scary, but also that's why I feel like I'm going to be a better dietitian because of it, because you're rotating from different types of practice, going from dietitian to dietitian. So that is challenging, but in the best way, because that's how you're going to learn. Uh, every rotation you enter, you might feel like you're not ready for, but by the end of the week, you realize that everyone feels that way. So just remember that. And going back to what we were mentioning earlier about having like great connections, it's such a huge company you're working for, which can also feel a little bit scary, but I never felt that way. Like at each hospital or at each rotation and in each even floor of the hospital, I felt like I built my own little community, even though my rotation might have been only like a week or 2 weeks. You really form relationships with not only the preceptor you're working with and the dietitian, but also the team, the interdisciplinary team. And maybe that was just a like my hospital. My hospital was great with that. I felt like I formed some really strong connections and relationships, and it helps you learn because then you can go on to ask those scary questions that you might be afraid to ask otherwise. And then going off of the questions, remember to ask questions, but then also remember to learn from the questions because I mean, this is coming from experience. There were a few times where I would ask a question, it would go in one ear and out the other, and then I would find myself making the mistake again. So ask questions, learn from your questions, and move on. And then additionally to that, if you have a question throughout the day, you can also do your own research. So just remember that you have from grad school, from undergrad, you have a lot of research skills. So you can do your own research before asking your preceptor, and they'll really appreciate that. And then they can dive in even deeper. And then as far as success during the rotations, I personally found it super helpful to prepare in advance. So I preferred to get to the hospital long before my preceptor got there and review kind of what I did the day before, review my notes from previous rotations or maybe resources that they gave you. So if a preceptor sends you some resources, make sure to review them. Don't get overwhelmed. I'm sure they'll probably go over them with you as well, but at least make them um, fresh in your brain before going into that rotation. And yeah, I think Alexandra hit all the other points.
Thank you.
So for me, some of the highlights of my experience was I got to see some different tube placements. I got to see some GJs inserted, and I got to um, spend some time in the ICU. And the hospital that I interned at was also a trauma facility, so I got to see a lot of different um, just equipment, different specialties. And some of the more challenging aspects of my rotation were that right as I left my food service rotation into my clinical rotation, we had like four dietitians quit, like the week of me starting. Um, so it was a big kind of shuffle trying to figure out like what's going on with my internship. Um, and if you guys ever experience anything like this during your internship, I would just say don't panic. I was a huge bundle of anxiety, but Morrison never dropped the ball with me. I never had a single day that I wasn't able to complete my hours. I didn't have a single day where I didn't get rotations in. There was no issue with me ever completing anything. So my biggest piece of advice is if anything goes wrong, really don't panic. You have a lot more people with a lot more influence looking out for you. Um, and then as far as what helped me succeed with my rotations, just coming in with the attitude of I'm a blank slate and I know nothing. I'm not an RD. I read some books and I had people talk to me about nutrition, but like I don't have clinical experience as an RD. I don't have years of experience that my preceptors do. So really just coming in with an attitude to learn, coming in with an attitude of if I don't understand something, it's time to start looking up. Kind of as Grace had said earlier, if you have a question, research it. While it's true, there's not really stupid questions. Depending on your preceptor, they might have a different attitude towards that. So when you're thinking about, I would try to research your questions first, and then if you can't find what you're looking for, ask next. Um, and then things that I wish I'd known before starting my internship. I wish I would have known how important it was to make good relationship with the nurses.
Mhm.
The nurses are your best friends, basically your boss half the time. Like, listen to the nurses, introduce yourself. You don't have to be friends. You don't even necessarily have to like them, but learn their name. They're taking care of your patient. You're realistically there talking to them for 15 minutes, maybe, and then you're charting the rest of your time. The nurses are the ones that if you have any problem and you need any information, they're the ones that you're going to talk to. So my biggest piece of advice that I wish I'd known before starting was just how valuable that relationship with the nurses is and with the other dietitians.
Great words of advice. Thank you guys. All right, so I'd like to move into the section of balancing the internship with your life. And I know this can be tough, so let's talk about it. So, how did you manage the demands of the internship alongside your other responsibilities like work, family, or school? Do you have any tips for self-care, mental health, or time management for current or future interns?
Yeah, so I had a lot going on during the internship. I've got a family. I was actually doing part-time work as well. And then on top of it, towards the end, my husband got a job offer down in Augusta. So we started having to sell our home. And so it was a lot. Something really nice about the internship is that I was able to do a 4-day work week. So having Friday off not only gave me some flex days in case, I got sick one day or something, or I had to pick up my daughter at daycare. I could take that day off and then work Friday. So having that day to sit down and do some of the assignments or work on other life priorities was really valuable to me. Um, I probably still sacrificed a lot of sleep, but I got everything done. So as far as tips to maintaining self-care and mental health and time management, my big piece of advice would be don't procrastinate on the assignments. You're going to get a lot and it's going to feel overwhelming. You're just going to see like, I wrote down a list of everything I needed to get done, and it felt really good to scratch it off ahead of time. And then if you finish early, you can just kind of kick your feet back and then, not have to worry about that and focus solely on whatever rotation you're in the moment. So don't put off assignments and um, don't forget to take some time for you.
Yeah, I want to make my first piece of advice to get enough sleep, but yeah, you might compromise a little bit of sleep, but still prioritize yourself. But yeah, I managed multiple jobs during the internship. Um, Honestly, through waking up early and just prioritizing work. There's seasons of your life where you can say yes to everything, but it might be a season, a 9 month time period in your life where you might have to prioritize and say no to some things, as long as that's, gonna make sure it's along with your prioritizing your well-being as well. And so just prioritizing yourself and your health when you might say yes to other social things. And just remembering, I feel like you're so ingrained, at least I was so ingrained in school and in grad school, like I have to get 100, I have to get an A+ on everything. But it's not that serious all the time. Like you can manage a few minor details and things if it means that you're going to be learning better than you would have. It's all about what you're getting. I mean, personally, I think it's all about what you're getting from the experience. Like the point of the dietetic internship is to learn. So just remember that it's not, the point isn't to get an A+. So make sure you're thinking about that throughout it. And then also the 4-day work week like does help a lot. So just like take advantage of that on Fridays. If that means going to your job or that means getting your work done, like just personally, I treated Fridays like another work day, doing other things. And then in terms of maintaining self-care, and mental health and all those things, I really like to habit stack. I don't know if anyone's heard of that before, but I love to do things like at the same time. So, for example, walking is a big stress reliever for me. So I would walk and listen to a podcast about something I want to learn more about that might help me in my rotation. Or I like to cook. So while I cook, I would call a friend because I also am a very social creature and I need social interaction. So calling a friend while I do other things was really helpful for me to make me still feel like I was nourishing those relationships throughout those busy times.
Yeah, with managing non-internship stuff during the internship, just keeping in mind that you've got to be flexible. Even though it's uh, your internships should be Monday through Friday, keep in mind there might be days or weeks where something's going on with a preceptor and it might be Monday through Wednesday and then Friday. Ideally not, but sometimes you might run into that. And so just making sure that you're keeping your commitments to everything that's not the internship as light as you possibly can. Um, if you're in a position where you don't have to work, I'm not going to say don't work, but it might be a good idea to cut back your hours. If you're, doing your internship from, 6:30 to 3, 4 days a week, and then bartending, 4 to 10, you're going to burn out really fast. So just really keep in mind that no matter how much you're working, or if you have family commitments, or if you're in grad school still, really just trying to set boundaries almost with yourself of like, I'm gonna work from this point to this point, and I'm gonna do all my stuff here. And once this time slot hits or whatnot, I have to take a break. The breaks are gonna help you a lot more than they're gonna hinder you. And just keeping in mind that this internship is it's a marathon. It's not really a sprint in that context. Like it's 9 whole months. Like you can't burn yourself out for 9 whole months. At least most of us can't. I should say I can't. Um, so just keeping that in mind. And as far as like mental health stuff, self-care, time management, organize. If you're not someone that writes things down, start writing things down. Write down everything, especially what your calendar is. If you're not someone who uses a calendar, whether written or on your phone, start using it. It's time. It's really easy to lose yourself in all your commitments and then start double booking or forgetting things. And that sets a really, really bad look if it starts to affect your preceptors and their schedules and your facility. Um, because you're borrowing their time. It's, they're giving you a gift of their time that if you show that you are abusing, there's a consequence to that. So just really, I mean, I personally had to write everything down. I was never really a calendars person before, but I just started writing things down. And kind of like what Grace said, double stacking. You're depending on your commute could be 20 minutes, your commute could be 30 minutes, it could be an hour. That's time in your car that you could be listening to a podcast. That's time in your car you could have a YouTube video playing in the background about, somebody doing like MNT for dummies. Like it's time that you have that you don't have to be listening to just music. But if that's your decompression space, take it. And then my last point on that would be what I tried to do is I tried to do 1 day a week where I was like nothing. 1 day a week that I could sleep if I wanted to. I could go surf. I could do whatever. But kind of just loading myself up during the week, doing what I needed to get done. And by the time my 1 day came around, doing whatever I want. No commitments, just relaxing. It's gonna save you a lot of burnout. And then what Alexandra said, just kind of front loading everything. The more you front load, the less stressed you're gonna be. You might be stressed for 2, 3 weeks doing all your projects, but then you've got the entire rest of your rotation to kind of just relax.
Awesome. Thank you guys. So let's finish up with a few reflections on the impact of your internship. So how has the Morrison Healthcare Dietetic Internship prepared you for your current position or professional path? What kind of impact did this internship have on your development or confidence as a dietitian? And any final words of advice or encouragement for our incoming interns or those maybe considering the DI program?
So as far as how preparing for completing the internship prepared me for my current role, I really just rolled right into it. You'll have an opportunity to do 2 weeks of kind of a staff relief type rotation. I ended up doing a little bit more. I did about a full month of it. So by the time that I was starting my job about a month later, clinical, I just picked up like nothing ever stopped. I was completely prepared to see patients on my own and to chart and to make recommendations and speak during rounding. So I felt completely confident. I guess another appeal to Morrison would be that it is very clinical focused. So even though I valued the full internship with food service and seeing how the kitchen operates, because that's part of even clinical role is knowing, how your patients are getting fed from the kitchen. And I walked in with a lot of confidence just because I was so self-sufficient by the end of my clinical rotation. So like I said, you start feeling overwhelmed. You may only see one or two patients a day. But I started my job, taking patient loads up to 15, 16 patients a day and not thinking twice about it. And as far as any final advice for incoming interns or those on the fence, I mean, everyone has their own reasons for making their choices, whether it's location or cost or, what kind of experience you're looking for. So, I mean, I'm going to advocate for Morrison because I'm biased and I had such a good experience myself. Um, so yeah, I mean, like I say, it's your personal life, but Morrison prepared me for a job. I got to see and do so much, both clinical and food service. And anyone I talk to who's still in school, some of my older classmates who are behind a year or two, I always recommend Morrison to them just because my positive experience with them.
Yeah, they prepared me. My preceptors, the program itself, all the things prepared me so well. If I were to have wanted to go straight into inpatient, I would have had complete confidence doing so, rolling right into it. I will say that's one recommendation I have. If you know you want to go clinical inpatient, just go right into it. And I think it is going to be a smooth transition. You don't realize you do so much schooling beforehand, but you don't realize how much you're going to learn on the job. It's incredible. Your brain is a sponge when you're getting information shoved at you. It's scary, but then that's how you're going to learn. At least that's how I learned. It was incredible. I love learning. So getting to learn so much in such a short amount of time was super exciting. Especially you're learning about things that you are so interested in and so passionate about and all day, every day. So it's super exciting and super fun. So that's one thing is just get excited about that. Um, and also just remember like throughout the internship that your preceptor is giving you free reign like the farther into it as you go for a reason and they have confidence in you. So trust your skills, trust your experience, and they wouldn't let you go on to your staff relief if they didn't know that you had the capability. And use that as a time to gain those skills that you're going to need to go into your future position because that's the only way you're gonna feel as confident as we're saying we felt is if you take advantage of that time where you're independent and taking on your own clients or patients. And yeah, I had the same experience with my staff relief rotation, making me feel super confident in that. My final advice would be even if you're not necessarily wanting to do clinical, I still like 100% recommend a more clinical based internship like Morrison because that base of knowledge I already know is going to help me in whatever route I take. And it's exciting and comforting knowing that I got all of those. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, we got to see TPN, we got to see placements, we got to see all these things, and it just helps you understand everything else more, whether or not it's clinical or not. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely Morrison. With the Morrison internship, you are really able to just kind of roll into a clinical position. pretty much straight out of the internship. Um, it's definitely the amount of resources that Morrison supplies you, the amount of personal connections that Morrison supplies you with. It's kind of a if you don't feel prepared by the end of it, you're not utilizing it. Um, yeah, there's so much information that Morrison gives you to read on your own time. The projects they're not really fluff work at all. It's stuff that you need to know how to do, and it's stuff that you need to know at least conceptually how to manage. And looking back on the professional development and confidence during that I developed during the internship. I mean, you're going to enter into the internship and any of your rotations kind of like I have no idea what's going on. But everywhere you go with the equipment that Morrison gives you or that your rotation specifically gives you, you leave it at least knowing the basics. And it's kind of your job to research and learn more from there. And then as far as any final advice on any of you guys coming in that you know that if I can advocate for Morrison, um, really just like what I said earlier, the connections alone make this program invaluable, absolutely invaluable with the networking that you can develop. I mean, you yeah, it's unbelievable. Um, and then as far as the emphasis of the internship itself being clinical, even if you don't want to go into clinical, do a clinical internship. I mean, that's almost half your exam for the RD is going to be. So, I mean, you can't go wrong. Even like I know myself, I don't really want to go the clinical route, but I knew choosing a clinical rotation was going to be a huge chunk of my exam. So why wouldn't I choose something that's going to prepare me for a huge chunk of my exam? So if that's not something you want to do, just think about it that way.
Great. Thank you guys so much for your thoughtful answers and for being a part of this conversation. Your insights, I know, will be make a huge difference for our future students when they start to think about which program they want to choose. So I really appreciate your time and your generosity in sharing your experiences with us today. Thank you guys so much.